And so when you're telling a story, you don't just slip past the guard, the conscious mind, you entertain the Mr. Martell was chewing my ass. I don't effing want solar. What do you guys think you're doing here? Like over and over. We're at this guy's kitchen table. I've got a brand new recruit with me. Mr. Martell's wife is in the kitchen and she's cringed up. She's like, oh my gosh, Harry, calm down. And I'm just getting my ass chewed. Here's the thing is the consultation was set 3 days before by a brand new guy and I don't know exactly what he said. So I let this customer rip me a new one for about solid 3 or 4 minutes. And I said, okay, hey, no problem. I understand you don't want solar. Hey, but before we leave, what is it that you hate about solar? He said, well, I don't hate it. I was like, oh, okay. Then why is it that you don't want solar? Because you just kind of ripped us a new one for the last 3 or 4 minutes, right? And he's like, my friend, he's paying more money now, and I have another friend who got totally screwed. It ruined his roof. It did all these other things, and he's just going on and on about this. And I said, so that makes sense because you don't want to end up in a predicament like your friend, right? He says, yes. I said, that was Jim's story down the street. So Jim had the same experience. He had 3 or 4 friends that just had bad experiences with solar. In fact, the sales guy that came in there and sold all his friends didn't fulfill the promises that he made to the friends. And so when we knocked on Jim's door, he was the exact same way as you. But once Jim knew how this system worked and he knew that we wouldn't work with him unless we saved him money from day one and unless there was no money out of pocket, Jim decided to sit with us. He just got installed 3 days ago, which is why we had the rep knock on your door. See what I just did here? I told a story within a story and you're in a story right now. The framework for this is probably one of the most savage things you can do because this is going to work for the structure to overcome objections, to put customer at ease, and to be able to segue your way into the value proposition. By the way, at the end of this deal, this guy signed a $48,000 loan, and we were best buddies with him. He showed us all his guns. He has guns everywhere inside the home. He has a press that he makes bullets and all sorts of stuff. And he was like best buddies when we left. Here's the thing: is while he was yelling at us, I just listened and I just kind of understood that. And then we walked ourselves. Just 3 hours later, spending all this time with this guy, we rolled up the deal. So a story puts the listener in the protagonist point of view. And so when you're telling a story, you don't just slip past the guard, the conscious mind. You entertain the conscious mind, and then you relay the commands and you relay the points back into the unconscious, which is going to make them feel safe and is going to get them to do action. So part of this is like when someone tells you a story, whenever it's story time, we're going to listen. We're engaged. Stories, for the most part, keep us entertained. And then we look at a story. When we hear a story or read a story, we put ourselves in their character's shoes. And so now we can just imagine it. So and the best way to be able to use these stories is any sort of objection. A lot of times people have these sort of objections, but before I get into the objections, I want to talk about matching a story to their personality. So the best stories, the most well-laid stories that you're ever going to have are usually very similar to the customer's personality. So if you have a customer that's very skittish and very scared, tell a story about another person that was very skittish and very scared. If you have another owl, like an owl personality that wants to, spreadsheets, graphs, and maps and is very risk adverse, tell a story like that. If you have that bull personality, like, hey, what do you want? What are you doing? Tell a story about them. Because once you tell a story that closely matches your customer, they're not only going to see it from their shoes, but they can easily imagine themselves actually doing that and being like that. And so the best laid stories are the stories that are told preemptively to pre-detonate some of these objections. So there's some main objections that I hear all the time. And if I'm on the doorstep and I'm setting an appointment, I'm going to bring these up and I'm going to talk about the neighbors down the street. These are true life stories. Or I'm going to talk about somebody else that had the same sort of concern that they did. If you go back into the story that I just told, it was full of nugget after nugget after nugget. Strategically, what I did to overcome the objections, what I did to resolve this customer's animosity and anger and aggressiveness, all of the things I did inside there. But the most important part about that was I told the story with his exact same concern. And that exact same concern was exactly Jim's concern, which was down the street. Get good at telling stories that pertain to your offer and people don't resist. Become a really good storyteller and you're going to be able to set your price. If you can be really good at telling stories, you literally get to be a walking ATM machine. So I would challenge you all to to tell stories. And here's the other thing that goes with is we tell ourselves stories about who we are. Whether you believe it or not, we're always this inner dialogue that's going on. It's telling us stories about ourselves. And so what stories are you telling yourself? What stories are you telling clients? What stories are you telling anybody out there? What stories are you telling your kids or your wife or your husband? What kind of stories are you telling them? I'm going to tell you, I had a rep, and I had the biggest solar sales organization in Arizona, 2025. I had a rep, he was living in Oklahoma. Now, this guy was growing marijuana. This guy was straight up growing illegal marijuana. Marijuana is legal out there, but he was part of an illegal operation. And somehow I got connected. I had a recruiting funnel, and I ended up getting connected with him, and I had a conversation with him, and I was just giving him the details on the opportunity, and this guy had a lot of hesitation. And what he was thinking literally was, do I trust him? Do I trust the opportunity? And do I trust myself to be able to yield that opportunity? So after a series of phone calls, he moved out here to Arizona. Now here's the other thing, is he not only moved himself, but he had a wife and 2 kids. By the way, he owned a house when he was out in Oklahoma. So he took this huge leap of faith to come out here. Last year, by the way, he made $380,000. He took this huge leap of faith, but if you're a lot like him, do I trust him? Do I trust the outcome? Do I trust the process? And do I trust myself being able to do this? You can trust the outcome, and you can trust yourself. And I'm not telling you to trust me now, but implement and deploy some of these tactical skills inside your next sale. Get good at leveraging and using the skills, and watch what happens. Just watch. You're going to want to tune in for this next video, because in this next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to get the customer to easily and effortlessly and vividly imagine themselves owning your product or service. And to act contrary to that would be giving up on that destiny. So I'll see you in the next video.